Okay, so welcome, Elaine, back to the Zoom room for another Lots of Letting Go live session. So we're going to dive in today to the text, first of all, to get that done, and then we'll look at our workbook lesson after that if we have time. So today's text reading is on Justification for Forgiveness, it's called, which is section 6 of chapter 30 we're on to. So we nearly finished the text again. How's that? Getting through the text
Good.
twice.
It's
Just
always
one
different
at
each time.
a
It's always different each time, and you learn something new each time.
Yeah, I can say that having been through it. I don't know how many times I've read it a couple of times, just reading it, from the start, like reading a section or two every day. And now, over the last couple of years with the program, I just read it as we go every day, read a section as part of the sessions. I'm editing it. And, I have to say, compared with how I understood it 18 years ago when I first started reading it, it's a massive difference. I
Oh,
think
yeah,
then I
good.
was reading it and I was like, okay, I'm kind of getting it. There's something very profound here. I knew that. But,
Yes,
a lot of
you
it
just
just kind
see
of
it
goes over.
differently each time. Yeah, yeah.
A lot of
Something
it goes
sinks
over.
in. Yeah,
And
just
the
something
depth
else
and
sinks in.
profundity of it is missing. But as you go deeper into it, it becomes
Just all,
more obvious.
yeah.
People say the text is really complicated and difficult to understand. And initially, yeah, it is, I guess. It's different
Yes, yes,
language
it
and
is.
concepts are different. But as you get into it, you go, well, it makes so much sense. It's actually quite straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I guess I'm saying that after 18 years of studying it quite, pretty much all the time. Haven't really ever gone, okay, I'm not going to study the course
Mm-hmm.
for any length of time during that period. So it's continuous study, a lot of audios, listening to text being read. Now, the last 6 years of this program, it's really going into depth into it and really looking at each paragraph, what it means, and trying to apply it. I think, that's what I like about my sessions with John, is we apply. You say, okay, so let's do an example. How would that look? And then you give so it's called real life example. And you go, oh, okay, so now I'm kind of seeing, by example, you see that
Mm-hmm.
this isn't just theory that he's telling us. This is actually, how it plays out in human lives and relationships.
Yeah.
And then the course becomes alive. It's like, okay, this actually applies. It's very useful in practical so-called real life situations to interpret what's really going on and to correct it.
Mm.
And,
Yeah.
and you have to do that. If you can't apply it, it can become a series of abstractions, as Helen Schuckman called, without applying it. And the workbook's designed to help you to do that. This is in the context of the workbook. She's saying the workbook is needed because otherwise the text could become a series of abstractions, theoretical abstractions, which have little or no relevance to practical daily life.
Mm.
Well, I understand these highfalutin principles, but they're just theories. They're just nice sounding words and principles, and I can speak them, but how do I actually apply them into my life? And that's really what we try and do. And that's why when we study it, we go through it line by line, and then I ask you to summarize it. It's like, okay, so how does this actually apply? And can you apply it to your life or see how it applies to other people's lives, and then it starts to come alive. Okay, that being said, let's crack on with it.
Yeah.
11 o'clock, so we've got an hour and a half. So this one's called the Justification for Forgiveness, or in alternative language, the Justification for Letting Go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think just read, really not much to translate here. So just read an alternative. It'll just be personalized in an alternative, that's all.
Yeah. Anger is never justified. Attack has no foundation. It is here my escape from fear begins and will be completed. Here is the real world given in exchange for dreams of terror. For letting go is based on this and is therefore only natural. I am not asked to offer pardon where attack seems to be due and would be justified, for that would mean that I let go of sin by overlooking what is really there. There is not pardon, for it assumes that by responding in a way which is not justified, my pardon will come the answer to attack that has really been made. Therefore, pardon by being granted where it is not due is inappropriate. It's just saying that anger is not justified, it has no foundation. And this is, it's here that the escape from fear begins and completed. So letting go is the natural thing to do. It's saying you're not asked to offer a pardon where attack seems to be due and would be justified. Yeah. So it's saying it's not pardon, for it assumes that by responding in a way which is not justified, my pardon will become the answer to attack that has really been made.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the pardon being granted is not due and is inappropriate.
What's he really saying? In a nutshell, he's saying, if you think that you've really been attacked, that attack has really happened, you've really been unfairly treated, then you will see, you will try and pardon it, but you'll try and pardon something that's real. And this is why everyone fails at forgiveness in the ego's thought system. Do you see that?
Yeah, it's got to come
to
from
forgive the sin that's really real and it's really happened, it's really hurt me. I need to forgive this. And then you're like, well, how do I do that? Because it's hurt. So how do I then just let go of the hurt? And then it seems like if I let go of the hurt, it's unjustified. This person has really hurt me. So how do I let go of that then? That's also why everyone struggles with forgiveness. Because if you try and do it this way, you'll never really do it. You have to go to the radical forgiveness and say, okay, I have to look at it differently and see that maybe none of this is real. That's the only way you're going to do it. Nothing that happens in my life, nothing that happens in the world is real. It's just a crazy dream world. None of it really means anything. And on that basis, I can forgive it, you see, truly let it go, because it's just a dream. I was having a dream this morning. I should give you a good example.
Yeah.
So I was having a dream, and it wasn't a very nice dream. I wouldn't say it was a fully fledged nightmare, but I dreamt that I was back in university.
Yeah.
And I was trying to find my way to lectures, but I couldn't. I had no idea what classes I was even doing. So I'm like, I have no idea where I'm supposed to go and which classes I'm supposed to go to, because it's been years since I've been here. And it's all a bit unfamiliar and I'm feeling very uncomfortable. And then I ended up climbing up a wall and it was just like really I wasn't comfortable at all. And I'm trying to kind of fix the problem in the dream. You see, I was trying, and then I lost my phone. That's right. I left my computer somewhere and I was like, oh my God, what have I done with my computer? I no longer have that. And I'm like, I don't even remember where I was because there's this corridors. Now I'm trying to find my computer. I can't find my lectures. I'm trying to find my computer. And then I'm trying to find my phone. And then, oh, no, I've got my phone. Oh, thank God. I guess at least got my phone. Maybe I can use that to get my computer and find where my lectures are. And then I look at the phone. I go, it's not even my phone. This is someone else's phone.
Yeah,
All my numbers are gone. I'm like, You know what I mean? And I'm trying to work all this out in the
Yeah,
dream. I'm just like, I can't. And then I
impossible.
wake up. Yeah, and then I woke up and then I'm like, oh,
Thank
thank,
goodness for that.
thank goodness it was just a dream. So none of it was real. And I didn't need to respond or react or try and solve any of these problems because they weren't real and they've just disappeared. Oh, what a relief. I've woken up. Well, this is what Yeshua's trying to teach us. What a relief, because all of these nightmares that you've created here are just part of a dream. It's just a very real seeming dream. And you can awaken from all of it. None of these problems mean anything. In the same way as when you're sleeping, those problems don't mean anything. I just made it up. That was a projection of my own mind, a miscreation of my own mind, that dream that came out of a past memory of university days. And then I'd probably put in some fear, some anxiety about losing my computer, losing my phone. So that showed up in the dream. And it's entirely a miscreation of my mind. That's all that's going on. None of it really means anything. But it can show me my delusions and my fears, and it can show me that my fears aren't real. And that's the only value of the dream. Okay, well, thank goodness, actually, none of that's true and none of that's real. And then I was like, I woke up and was like, ah, okay, I'm in my bed, my computer's around the corner on my table, and my phone is in the bathroom. Okay, yeah, okay, great. I don't actually have to worry about solving those two problems because they're not problems.
Yeah, just a dream.
So that's an example, in this world of how it works. We just have to extrapolate that uh, to a bigger reality. That's seemingly harder to awaken from. This world can seemingly be very real, and these
Mm.
problems can seem to be real, and they don't just go away. You don't instantly awaken from them. That's the problem. If you could, it was as easy as, oh well, I'll just there we go, and the problems disappear. Like you wake up from a sleeping dream. Great, but it's harder to awaken. And that's
Mm.
exactly why the ego's designed the world the way it has. It's like, okay, it's going to make it very, very difficult for you to awaken from all these imagined problems because it needs the problems to survive. So that's why you need consistent discipline practice. Okay, but I can practice the thought process of forgiveness, and that will help me to start awakening in the dream, and I'll start to be able to see beyond the problems, and that these problems aren't real, even though they seem to be, even though they don't immediately. When I first say, this problem isn't real, that problem might still seem to be there. Might not just disappear straight away. Quite possibly not. But if I keep doing that and I follow guidance, then all my problems can be solved. It just has to work itself out in time sometimes. So that's what he's saying here. You've got to take it to the metaphysical level of none of this is real. None of it's real. Rather than trying to pardon something that's been already done in your mind. That's what we talked about the three types of forgiveness.
Oh, yes,
So
yeah.
there's no forgiveness, which isn't forgiveness at all. That's I actually judging and condemning you. You're a sinner, and I'm like some kind of self-righteous person above you, and because I'm supposedly Christian, let's say I should forgive you, but actually you're a sinner and you're going to be condemned to hell. That's not forgiveness at all. That's condemnation in a very thin disguise. That's forgiveness to destroy, as Yeshua calls it in the Song of Prayer, I think. But the compassionate forgiveness is a bit more subtle, a bit harder to see through. Compassionate forgiveness or halfway forgiveness says, okay, it's really happened, but I can try and understand why the person did that, why they behaved the way they did, why they hurt me, even though it's really happened. And that softens my judgment. Then I'm supposed to let go of my judgment of it. Then I'm supposed to pardon them because, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. But it's really happened in my mind. So it becomes very, very difficult. The more I think it's happened, the more difficult it is to let it go because I made it real in my perception. So the radical forgiveness just says, no, it was never real to start with. This is a dream figure. In your dream, you're a dream figure. None of the dream figures are real. It's just a projection of an insane mind we call the ego, or the belief in separation, just playing out this ridiculous, insane dream. And I got caught up in that, as is the other person, and we've lost our way. We've forgotten who we really are. But fortunately, none of this is real. None of these dream figures and these dream happenings are real. So it never really happened. It's just a dream. It's a movie, if you prefer, a projection of an insane mind, just images on a screen. But none of that really affects the underlying reality of the screen, which remains unaffected by whatever images are projected onto it. And it's only that kind of understanding that can help you to really let go, forgive. Okay, so let's go on to number 2 then. Pardon is always justified.
To pardon or letting go is always justified. It has a sure foundation. I do not let go of the unforgivable, nor overlook a real attack that calls for punishment. Awakening does not lie in being asked to make unnatural responses which are inappropriate to what is real. Instead, it merely asks that I respond appropriately to what is not real by not perceiving what has not occurred. If pardon were unjustified, I would be asked to sacrifice my rights when I let go in response to seeming attack. But I am merely asked to perceive letting go as the natural reaction to distress that rests on error and so calls for help. Letting go is the only sane response. It prevents my own rights from being sacrificed. So just this letting go is always justified because it's a radical forgiveness. It's so it's saying awakening. Just keep lifting it up. But awakening doesn't lie by being asked to make unnatural responses which are inappropriate to what is real. So yes, it's just all dream, and it's the only way is the radical forgiveness, letting go. It's the only sane response.
Exactly. When you're asked to perceive letting go as a natural reaction to distress that rests on error and so calls for help. So this radical way out is the only way that's really going to work. What other way is going to work but completely letting it go? It sounds so obvious when you say it that way. And how can you really heal from the distress and pain and suffering if you don't let it go? Well, kind of obvious. Yeah, of course you won't, because you hold on to it. So conceptually, it's really obvious, but to actually do it means that you've got to drop your own identification with that person, that circumstance, that situation. And that's what we find hard. Let's say I remember speaking to one woman, and she was jilted. So her husband left her for another woman 25 years before, right? And she was like, no, I'm still really, upset about it and angry. And, I've been on my own ever since. And so she clearly hasn't moved on from it. And, that if you keep telling yourself the story that this has happened to you, the character in the dream that you're now identifying with. And then I remember questioning it, and she didn't really want to go there, because what I was really threatening was the character that she'd identified with for 25 years. Oh, I've been hardly done by, I've been unfairly treated, and now this becomes so much a part of my identity that I can't let it go, because who would I be without this victim story? And that's why it's difficult. Because then the person, having falsely identified with the ego story of who the ego says they are, now can't let it go, because then the ego says, well, if you let this go, who would you be? This is death.
Mm.
This is for the ego to die. This you would have no identity. This is terrible. No, you can't do that. You've got to hold on to your grievance at all costs, because who would you be without it? And so the ego tells you that this is life, holding on to your grievance. And the Holy Spirit says, no, you got it all wrong, my brother. This is death. Holding on to the grievance will take you to misery, endless misery, pain, suffering, and eventually death. And only letting go of the grievance is life. And they are opposite. You cannot reconcile them. It's one or the other. It's why the ego and the Holy Spirit will never, can and never will be reconciled. And any attempt to do so is pointless and futile, because you can't reconcile these completely opposite ideas and movements in your mind. The one says, hold on to every grievance, nurture it, become as bitter and twisted and angry and resentful as you can and fearful as you can. And the other one says, no, none of that's real. Just let it all go and be free. Be peaceful and loving and joyful and happy. You can't reconcile them, can you?
No, yeah.
So letting go or forgiveness is just a natural reaction to all of that pain and that suffering and that distress, as he calls it. It rests on error. It's the only sane response. It's the only way out. It's the only way to heal the sick mind of the ego. It's the only way that prevents my own rights from being sacrificed. So when you let go, instead of being a sacrifice, you're going, no, this is actually claiming my true rights. I'm claiming my right to be an extension of perfect love and to be happy and peaceful and loving and joyful. When I let go. The ego's interpretation of letting go is you losing all of your rights, because you're losing your right to be a separate, victimized self. So it sees letting go as very fearful. So there's only one choice, is what he's saying. Do not let go of the unforgivable, not overlook a real attack that calls for punishment. No, you just recognize that it's all unreal. It's just a made up dream. And the more you do that, the easier it becomes to let it go, isn't it? Like, this is just figures in a dream. It's like a movie. You watch a movie, you see these characters potentially attacking each other, murdering each other, hating, killing, destroying, getting sick, dying, whatever's depicted. And then the movie's over and it's gone. You walk out of the movie and the entire thing was just a temporary experience and it's disappeared.
Mm.
It only exists now in your memory. Those images only exist in your memory. So it's the same with life. Images just are retained in memory and we give them reality. But in truth, the images were never real. We were just seeing projections of our own mind onto a screen that come and go, that shift and change, but none of them were true.
Mm-hmm.
And so only that understanding is going to help us. As he says, this understanding is the only change that lets the real world rise to take the place of dreams of terror. Can we carry on?
The understanding is the only change that lets the real world rise to take the place of dreams of terror. Fear cannot arise unless attack is justified, and if it had a real foundation, true pardon would have none. The real world is achieved when I perceive the basis of true pardon is quite real and fully justified. While I regard it as an unwarranted gift, it must uphold the guilt I would supposedly let go of. Unjustified letting go is nothing but attack, and this is all the world can ever give. It pardons sinners sometimes, but remains aware that they have sinned, and so they do not merit the release that it gives.
Yeah, so what's he saying there?
Oops, it just keeps well, it's just saying about fear is just, well, it's unjustified. and it can't arise unless attack is justified. Saying about it pardons sinners sometimes, but remains aware that they have sinned, so it's still in the background. So that's that sort of in-betweeny forgiveness. So really they're not meriting the release that it should do, that it would give if you just let go for the fact that it's just a dream and it's not real.
Mm. So it's the understanding of true reality that's gonna help you let go. And you understand, the more you let go, the more you understand true reality. Because we don't understand what reality is to start with, do we?
Yeah.
So the more we practice letting go, the more we start to come to understand that true reality. Forgiveness is the practice of understanding reality. Stated another way. Do you see that? It's the only way you learn it. Whereas the world says it can pardon sinners sometimes. You know, it can try and do pseudo forgiveness, or maybe it'll try some compassionate forgiveness. It remains aware that they've sinned. It says you've still done this. It's still real. It's really happened, and I will retain that in my memory forever. And I've even heard people say, you know, have you ever heard someone, well, I just can't forgive that. I can't ever forgive that.
Yeah, yes, I have.
I mean, it's just, oh my God, what are you doing? You're condemning yourself to hold that grievance in mind forever. Whole nations do this. You know, think of some of the horrors of history, the Holocaust, and various, you know, wars, and then people say, oh, we can never forgive that. Okay, so you just made the ego and the idea of sin and guilt and fear and attack real in your mind forever. And you deny God forever because you want to hold that in mind instead. And that's the price you pay for any grievance. And then some people will identify so much with that grievance that they go, I can't possibly let go of that because then I'd be letting go of my identity. So I can't do it. I remember, I think I told you this story again, but I'll mention it again in this context. I sent out a quote once to a whole list of subscribers saying, it was saying, well, if you can't forgive Hitler, then you can't forgive it all. I think those were the exact words. If you can't forgive Hitler, then you can't forgive it all. Point being that, you know, you either forgive entirely the worst possible human being who's possibly ever lived, given what he did, or you don't forgive at all. There's this kind of an all or nothing deal. And this guy came up to me that evening at my club. He was Jewish, and said, "Oh no," he said, "you know, normally I love your quotes, Johnny, but don't send me that stuff. Don't send me anything like that." I said, "Oh, yeah, okay." And I was like, I had to think about, okay, yeah, I sent that out, okay. So I said, "Yeah, so do you have an issue because of the Holocaust?" He said, "Yeah, yeah." I said, "But do you see what do you see what I'm saying? Do you not see the principle that, you know, you either forgive entirely or not at all, and even someone like Hitler merits forgiveness. That's kind of the whole point. Otherwise, you hold." And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, I get it, but no, don't send me that stuff." And he walked
Too
away.
much.
So he didn't get it. You know, he didn't really want to go, okay, hang on. Like, if I really think about the point that you're making, I might have to question my fundamental identification as what? As a Jew. And that's a part of his identity. And so now he can't question that. And so I have to hold the grievance to maintain the identity. You see that? And, you know, if any, this is going to live streaming, so if any Jewish people or Muslims or whatever race group you happen to be, and there's a grievance you're nurturing, you have to really consider, is it worth maintaining the grievance to keep this identity that I have as a Jewish person or a Muslim or a Christian or whatever you identify with yourself with? But is it worth it? Or am I willing to just let it all go and be as I truly am. I'm not a Jew, I'm not a Muslim, I'm not a Christian, I'm not even a human being. I am the Son of God, or in our alternative language, I'm an extension of perfect love. That's all I am in truth. And none of these false identifications really matter. They're not who I am. But I have to be willing to let go of those false identities in order to claim who I truly am and to be truly peaceful, loving, joyful, and happy. There's no other way. You can't have your cake and eat it. You can't hold on to your grievances and your ego and then still expect to be loving and peaceful and joyful and happy and free yourself from the hell that is this world, to get off the cycle of birth and death. So you hold on to the grievance, you hold on to your separate identity. It means you come back here and you'll come back here again and again. And here's how it works. You might be a Jew in one life, and then you flip, and then in the next life, you're on the other side. Then you're a Nazi or a Nazi sympathizer, because that's how it goes. Because it doesn't really matter to the ego which side you're on, as long as there's a grievance in place, and as long as you have a separate identity. That's how it works. To keep you away from who you really are and to keep you in a false identity. That's all the ego's ever trying to do. So you've got to look beyond all of these false identities and taking sides and going, well, I'm right and you're wrong, because that's all just part of the illusion. Actually, we're all wrong. If you identify falsely, then you're wrong, you're mistaken. That doesn't call for punishment, that just calls for correction. It calls for an acknowledgement, yeah, I've been wrong, and fortunately I can see that, I can let it go. And that's what forgiveness is. Okay. So any other comments on number 3, or can we go on to number 4?
Yep. Yeah, it's good. Go on to number 4.
Okay, I'll read the original. This is a bit of translation. There's
Okay.
gods coming in and creator and so on. Okay, so this is the false forgiveness which the world employs to keep the sense of sin alive.
This is the false. Oh, I keep pinching it out and then it just goes back in again. I wonder why that is. It's just so
I don't
weird.
know,
Yeah, because I
but
know.
I can make it bigger if you like.
Yeah, it might be better. Yeah, it's funny that it used to
Pinch
be
it.
able to pinch it out and then it was fine, but now it just goes back.
Yeah,
Right,
so there you
right.
go.
Oops. Right. Just move. Just a second. I'm just trying to move because your screen is in the middle of it. Second.
Okay.
I'm just trying to move it so that I can see it. I'll move. Ah, there we go. There we go. Yeah. This is the false letting go, which the world employs to keep the sense of sin alive.
And recognizing God is just, it seems impossible his pardon could be real.
And recognizing pure formless awareness of perfect love is just. It seems impossible its pardon could be real.
Thus is the fear of God, the sure result of seeing pardon as unmerited.
So is the fear of perfect love the sure result of perceiving pardon as undeserved.
No one who sees himself as guilty can avoid the fear of God.
No one who perceives themselves as guilty can avoid the fear of perfect love.
But he is safe from this dilemma if he can forgive.
But they are freed from this dilemma if they can truly let go.
The mind must think of its creator as it looks upon itself.
The mind must think of its source as it perceives itself.
If you can see your brother merits pardon, you've learned forgiveness is your right as much as his.
If I can perceive my companions deserve pardon, I have learned that pardon is my right as much as theirs.
Nor will you think that God intends for you a fearful judgment that your brother does not merit.
Nor will I think that pure formless awareness of perfect love has a fearful judgment of me that my companions do not deserve.
For it is the truth that you can merit neither more nor less than he.
For my realization that I deserve neither more nor less than my companions is the truth. And from the top,
Okay, and then read it from the
yeah.
top.
This is the false letting go which the world employs to keep the sense of sin alive. And recognizing pure formless awareness of perfect love is just. It seems impossible its pardon could be real. So is the fear of perfect love the sure result of receiving pardon as undeserved? No one perceives themselves as guilty can avoid the fear of perfect love, but they are freed from this dilemma if they can truly let go. The mind must think of its source as it perceives itself. If I can perceive my companions deserve pardon, I have learnt that pardon is my right as much as theirs. Nor will I think that pure formless awareness of perfect love has a fearful judgment of me that my companions do not deserve. For my realization that I deserve neither more nor less than my companions is the truth. So this is the false letting go, which the world employs to keep the sense of sin alive. But if we recognize our pure formless awareness of perfect love, then its pardon could be real. So the fear of perfect love results in perceiving pardon as undeserved. So no one who perceives himself as guilty can avoid the fear of perfect love. So it's a case of they are freed from this time if they can truly let go. Yeah. So the mind must think of its source as it perceives itself. So if we can see our companions deserve pardon, then so can we. We are all one.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's my
You can't think someone else is sinful and also think of yourself as innocent. The ego says you can, but that's not true. Because if they're sinful, then you must also be sinful. And if they're innocent, so must you be, because you're the same as them. The Holy Spirit knows this with perfect clarity. The ego deceives you and says, no, you can be innocent by projecting your guilt onto someone else. So you can say they're the guilty ones, they're going to be punished by God, and you're off the hook. Except that you've made them guilty, and so you believe in guilt. And the more that you believe in guilt, the more that you project guilt outwards, the more that you're saying that guilt is justified. We've been through this before, but I'll show you again in this diagram how it works. It's really, really important that we understand the dynamics of it. That's why we go through it again and again. Because this is how the ego works, and you still see it operational all the time. The guilt and the sin that you feel for this terrible sin of separating from your source, in fact, destroying your source or love, now has to be, in order to get rid of it, the ego says, well, project it onto someone else. So now you have to say, well, I'm not the guilty one, you're the guilty one. And so God, this concept now of a fearful, wrathful, separate God, which isn't real, but you've made that up, is now going to punish you. And you're going to be the one who's punished, and therefore I'm off the hook. Except that the more you give something, guilt in the form of accusation, blame, and attack, the more you're saying, I have it to give. Do you see that?
Mm.
So I'm just perpetuating the guilt, and I'm perpetuating the cycle of guilt and fear and attack. And I keep trying to offload my guilt, which I'm increasing by trying to offload it. And it's never ending cycle. You just keep doing that. And we see, these patterns repeating in individual lives. And, think of some of the collective conflicts that have gone on in this world for hundreds or even thousands of years. Think of the Middle East. Jews versus Arabs, just endless, on and round you go. And you just perpetuate it over and over and over again. And each side, by projecting their guilt onto the other and saying, you, my brother, are worthy of attack, and you're not one of God's chosen people, and you're the one who's going to be destroyed. You're sinful and evil and guilty. They just perpetuate the illusion of guilt and sin. And then attack seems to be justified. And now we express that attack as war. And we actually go and kill people. And we fight, and we argue, and we fight. And we keep doing it over and over and over again until the only way out is to let go of the idea that you're a separate self. So I am not a Jew or an Arab or a Christian or a white or black or any individual. No, none of these characteristics define me at all. I'm not that. I am pure formless awareness of perfect love and nothing else. I have no form. I'm not defined by any of these forms. So therefore I cannot be guilty, because I never destroyed pure formless awareness of perfect love. I am still it, and I claim it back, and that's what forgiveness does. It claims your true identity back, and it lets go of all of this rubbish, which is just nonsense in the mind, that's filled up the mind with a whole lot of false concepts and beliefs, and it causes endless pain and suffering. We just think of human history. Human history is the history of the ego, by and large, with a few exceptions. You get spiritual masters like Yeshua coming into it and showing us another way. But most of human history is the story of the ego playing itself out over and over and over again. And that's why it's so violent, and there's so much conflict and pain and suffering, sickness and death over and over and over again, because this thought system demands it. And we've just got caught up in it. And it's become so normal. Well, this is just how it is. This is what human existence is like. I think in our world, modern technology, we've sort of sanitized it a bit, and it seems to be a bit better. But if you go back in history to harsher times, think of the Middle Ages, think of before Christ was born, the Romans. I mean, this is barbaric. People just brutal, just killing and murdering people, and in slavery was common. I mean, just the way people treated each other was appalling. And now, largely actually as a result of these Christian principles coming into society as laws, as rules. Okay, you can't just go around killing people. You can't steal from people. You can't hurt people. This has become secular law, and now there's consequences. But 2,000 years ago, it was fine. If you didn't like someone, you just kill them. It was okay, and you could get away with that, particularly if they were, somewhat of a lower caste. If they were your slave or something, you just murder them, and there was no consequence for it. It was okay. Well, that's changed largely as a result of Christian principles coming in, and they've been entrenched now in secular law. And so our society is a better, more compassionate, saner society. It's still got so many elements of insanity, there's no doubt, but there is a sense of, okay, you can't do that anymore. And that's a kind of a group understanding. You can't just go and kill people, or you can't go and invade a country. Think of what Russia just did with Ukraine. You can't just go do that. It's not acceptable anymore. A few hundred years ago, that was the norm. Everyone, we just feel like invading another country, making war, so we'll declare war because for whatever reason we want their territory. So we'll go and do that, and we'll cause chaos and havoc, and hundreds of thousands of people to die, and that's kind of okay. It's all just part of how you operate, how you roll as a king or emperor or whatever you call yourself. It was okay then. Now it's not. Fortunately, some of these principles have actually, we are learning slowly as a human race, but I think we still have a long way to go to radical forgiveness. Just saying, okay, it's just none of it's true. Because these conflicts would just disappear. You know, if the Arab and the Jewish leaders realized this is just an illusion, we're just believing in a false identity. This isn't true at all. We're just being played for a fiddle by the ego, and this will carry on for generation after generation if we don't stop it. This is what happened unusually in South Africa in 1994. You know, there were these two leaders who were both tapped in. Mandela had to do more forgiveness. He's the one who said, okay, I will let bygones be bygones. I'll draw a line under the past. It is what it is, but I'm not going to hold a grievance. And he understood radical forgiveness. And he applied it, and as a result, and then he was met by someone on the other side who said, okay, we're willing to negotiate. We're willing to accept that maybe we've been wrong, and this whole system we call apartheid, separation, was wrong, and it needs to be undone, and we need to peacefully hand over power to you as the majority, because you're the majority and majority rules. That's how democracy works. Okay, and let's negotiate that settlement and make sure that peace, above all else, we don't want a bloodbath. We want peace in our land. So the example, you know, there is few and far between. I think that's the only example in human history of one group in power just willingly giving up and giving over the power to another. It just really happens, but it is an example of how it can work, and that, you know, forgiveness actually does work on that scale, and it did bring about a peaceful resolution. And you know, if that hadn't happened, I may not be alive because I was there. There'd been a bloodbath. Who knows what would have happened? You know, it would have been carnage, and it would have been hellish, and it wasn't, because of forgiveness, essentially. So it really does work, but it requires leaders to understand it, and leaders who are strong in their understanding of it. So there was a great scene in a movie that was made of Nelson Mandela's autobiography, A Long Walk to Freedom. I don't know if you've watched it, but it's definitely worth a watch. And so he's speaking to his wife, Winnie, who obviously he was estranged from for 27 years because he's in prison. They then get back together afterwards, but they've gone on separate journeys. She's got very angry and bitter and resentful at all of
I
them.
have
She
seen
was
the
really,
film, yes. Yeah, I did see it, yes.
and you remember the scene. It was a beautiful scene because it
Yes.
was a classic confrontation between ego and Holy Spirit. And when he's saying, but the people are angry, Nelson. They want revenge. We must give them what they want, revenge. And he's saying, no, Winnie, you're wrong. The people don't know what they're doing. The people need to be shown another way. They need to be shown that revenge is not the way, that actually there's another way, and that is forgiveness and reconciliation coming out of love. He didn't say it as exactly like that. He said they are wrong. They need to be led. That's what leadership is. You need to show them a better way, which he did. And he had to stick to his principles. And I'm sure she wasn't the only one who questioned them. Going, you know, why are you being so lenient to these whites who've hurt us so much? You know, they've killed us. They've put you in prison. They've destroyed families. They've, like, all the brutality of the apartheid regime. Yeah, you can hold that as a grievance, and you can seek a punitive settlement. But if you do that, then you're just inviting more of the same. And he understood that. You got to let it go, and you got to move on. And thank God he did, because as a result, there was a peaceful settlement, and South Africa actually is somewhat functional. It far more so than, you know, it would have been if there'd been a civil war. The example of the other, and you see, he was a student of human history as well. So I think what he did was he looked in history and he saw the punitive settlement. There's a good example of that, end of World War I. There's a massive carnage, and the Allies blamed the Germans. They said, you caused this, you must now pay. You must pay reparations, and you're going to pay, and we're going to bleed you dry. You're going to pay so much that you're not going to have enough to rebuild your country, and your people are going to be, you know, in hardship and starving, but you must pay. It was a punitive settlement, the Treaty of Versailles. And as a result, what did it breed? The perfect breeding ground for someone like Hitler to come to power. And 20 years later, there's another world war. So it just creates more conflict. It didn't resolve it, and then you've got to deal with that. Unfortunately, end of World War II, they realized, okay, we made a mistake 30 years ago. We're not going to do that again. We're not going to seek to punish Germany. We're going to try and rebuild Germany, and forgiveness again. The Marshall Plan was called, and it was about rebuilding Germany and Europe in a sort of a way that wouldn't punish them for doing all these horrible things, that would allow them to rebuild as a nation. And as a result, they did, and they put the past behind them, and most Germans are now appalled at the past and going, that was horrific, and we're really sorry, that our ancestors did that, because it wasn't right and it wasn't correct. But we've just got to move forward now, and let bygones be bygones. Forgive the past. So there are examples in human history. You see this playing out on a macro scale. And that's why I'm using these examples, because they make a massive difference to human events, to human history. Forgiveness or not forgiveness is what really defines the way things go, as we've seen in those examples I've just given, on a global scale, and they are defining the attitudes of the people in question. The leaders at the time then define the way that the history plays out, for good or evil. So it's either the false letting go of the world. So take the Treaty of Versailles. There was no real forgiveness. It was a punitive settlement. It was like, okay, well, we're not going to punish you for the sins of the past, for causing the war. There's no forgiveness at all. And as a result, more conflict, more pain, more suffering comes 20 years later. End of World War II, they forgive, they let it go. They say, okay, we're not going to punish you. So there's a letting go of sin inherent in that settlement, and then it all works out better. And we've had probably one of the most peaceful periods in human history since then. Still been the odd war, but nothing on that kind of major carnage global scale has happened for the last 80 years. Well, could have been different. If they'd had a punitive settlement, could have been very different. Okay, so I think you get the point. And the examples demonstrate that quite clearly. All right, so let's go to number 5 then. Just read this one in the alternative. Not much to translate, just will of God will become pure, formless awareness of perfect love.
Letting go, recognized as deserved, will heal. It gives corrections their strength to overlook illusions. This is how I learn that I must also be released. There can be no appearance that cannot be overlooked, for if there were, it would first be necessary that there be some sin that stands beyond letting go. There would be an error that is more than a mistake, a special form of error that remains unchangeable, eternal and beyond correction or escape. There would be one mistake that had the power to undo being and make a world that could replace it and destroy the pure formless awareness of perfect love. Only if this were possible could there be some appearances that could withstand correction and not be healed by it.
Yeah, so what's he saying there?
Yeah.
The pub upstairs.
Yeah, so it's back to this letting go. Will heal. It'll give the corrections their strength to overlook illusions. This is how we learn that we must also be released. So,
and there can be no appearance that cannot be overlooked. This is the key, right? So because it's just an appearance, because it's just an illusion, it can be overlooked. Always. Doesn't matter how gruesome that appearance is, how horrific it appears to be, it can be overlooked, because it's just an illusion. easier said than done. Some of these appearances are so graphic or so
Yeah,
horrific,
so
so
real.
emotionally disturbing, cause physical pain, mental pain, emotional pain, trauma. This is why it's difficult, because the appearance has become so real to us that now it has the power seemingly to cause us all this trauma. But nevertheless, it's just an appearance. It's an image in a dream. We've believed in the dream. Therefore, we crucify ourselves. Therefore, we experience the trauma. But we had to believe in the dream first. We had to believe in the premises of the dream, that we are a separate self first in order for that trauma to happen. You understand why we are ultimately responsible. This is a key point. People go, well, how can I be responsible? Let's say I was abused as a child, horrific abuse. I'm still trying to recover, massive trauma. How can you say I'm responsible? Because you must have believed that you're a separate self, and then from that separate self come into a body to express that separation in order to put yourself in that position for that to happen. That's why you're 100% responsible. You must have believed in separation to allow that to happen. Do you understand?
Very radical,
Although
though.
you didn't consciously go, oh yes, I now want to be abused by this adult, physically, sexually, whatever. No one says that consciously. But in your subconscious, you decided to be separate. You decided to destroy love. You decided to be an individual self. And then guilt and sin must come. And the projection of guilt and sin now comes back at you as this attack, this hurt. And now you appear to be in a body because you were trying to run away from your true identity. So you run into a separate body. And all of that must have happened first to allow the abuse to happen. So on the higher level, you're responsible for the decision to separate. That's why you're responsible for all of it, because none of it could have happened if you didn't separate and you didn't decide that this was a good idea. So as hard as it is to accept, yeah, I'm 100% responsible for every single thing that seems to happen in the dream to me or anyone else, because I decided I wanted to separate. And if I keep deciding that, then I keep perpetuating these illusions. I'm saying, well, I still want them. So carry on then. Yeah, I like the sin and the guilt and the fear and the attack and all these horrific appearances. I prefer that to my true reality. That's what you're saying, whenever you judge it as real. The only way out of it is to say, no, none of it's real, because the idea behind it of separation isn't real. So I collapse it all when I deny the thoughts of separation, and I restore my mind to pure formless awareness of perfect love. Simple as that. Simple, but not easy, because now I've got all this trauma that I might be dealing with. My ego mind's telling me, oh, but this has really happened, and it's really hurt you. And look, you've got the wounds to prove it, emotional wounds, physical wounds. Like, how can you say it didn't happen? Just you got so far down the rabbit hole of the dream that you've forgotten that it was just one tiny mad idea that led to all of it. But you can remember that. How do you remember that? With forgiveness. Forgiveness is the reinterpretation of the ego's dream by the Holy Spirit, which is a remembrance of oneness that says, none of this is true. None of it's real. So the idea of separation isn't real. The consequences aren't true. Then the cause of separation isn't true. And the good news is you're still pure formless awareness of perfect love. That identity has never left you. That awareness is still there. And you can just restore your mind to that awareness anytime you choose. So why not right now? Is there ever any other time, really? That's what the Holy Spirit tells you. There is no other time than now. You can only do this now. You can't heal yourself in the future. You can only do it right now. So what's stopping you? Just your continuing belief in the false identity of the victim to which all this terrible stuff's really happened. It says, no, this is real, and it's really happened to you and to others, and so you cannot forgive it because it's real, and so that makes your victim identity real, and it keeps you away from pure formless awareness and perfect love forever. And that's really what he's saying here. It's a very important section. which is why we've gone into it first. And there's not one mistake. It doesn't matter how egregious the error is. That's why that's saying, you know, you either forgive Hitler or you don't forgive at all. It doesn't matter how egregious the error is. Okay, so Hitler's responsible for killing millions of people in a brutal way, but it's still just a mistake. It's still just an error that can be corrected. But if you make that one error real, then you make all of them real, and then you condemn yourself and everyone to be a victim of this cruel, unfair world. Well, is that a good choice? Or are you willing to reconsider the choice and maybe go, okay, there's actually a better way here. This choice doesn't make sense anymore, given that I understand this now. I need to let this go, and I need to allow myself to be healed, genuinely. Okay. Happy to go on, Elaine. Number 6.
Yep.
Surer proof. Can you read that?
Oh,
or shall I read it?
There is no surer proof that this world is what I wish for than my belief that there are some forms of sickness and misery letting go cannot heal. I'll just continue in the alternative.
Yeah.
This means that I prefer to value some forms, and I am not prepared yet to let all my false beliefs in worldly forms go. And so I think that some appearances are real and not appearances at all. I will not be deceived about the meaning of a fixed belief, and some appearances are harder to let go of than others. It always means I think that letting go must be limited, and so I have set a goal of partial pardon and limited escape from guilt for me. What can this be except a false letting go of my special self and everyone who seems apart from me? So this forgiveness is, or letting go is limited because it's only a partial pardon and limited escape from guilt. Yeah, and so it's just saying this is a false letting go of our special self and everyone who seems apart from it, from me.
So I value some forms, not prepared yet to let all my false belief go. So this is how we start. We go, okay, well, I can consider letting that one go, and maybe some of my minor grievances. But we have to let it all go because it's all false. Some forms of sickness and of misery, letting go cannot heal. Well, no, that's more serious. No, letting go can't heal whatever it is. My trauma, being abused, my cancer, my lifelong grievance against my ex who ran off with a woman or man, you know, and so on and so on. And so we hold these things apart from forgiveness, and we don't do it. Why? Because that maintains our separate identity. It keeps us believing that we're still a victim of a cruel outside world, maintains the separation very effectively, but it keeps this whole insane game going. And in the limitation of the ego's victim identity, we can't see that. It doesn't want us to see the bigger picture of what's really going on. So only a teaching like this will do that. Taking it to a higher level. But look at this whole system, right? It is a thought system that needs to be let go of. See how the system works, and then if you really understand how the system works, you'll be in no doubt that you need to let go at this level, you see? You go, well, I understand that it's a disaster, it's chaos, it's pain, it's suffering endlessly. If I don't let go, I'm accepting that all of that is real. And I'm inviting all this pain, suffering, sickness, and death into my life. This is not a smart choice. This is not wise to do this. But it needs this kind of high-level understanding, which is why we study the text and we do the workbook lessons. And the more we practice forgiveness, the more we start understanding this. When we start on this journey, we don't understand, do we? We don't have a clue. Because we're just in our little ego box, the victim identity, and it's very difficult to see outside of the framework of that box. So this is about going beyond the box, going out of the box into what's beyond the box is completely unlimited, is free, is eternal, infinite and eternal. There is no box. Okay, so number 7.
It must be true that corrections can heal all forms of sickness, or it cannot heal at all. Its purpose cannot be to judge which forms are real and which appearances are true. If one appearance remains unhealed, one illusion must be part of truth. And I could not escape all guilt, but only some of it. I must let go of my judgment of my companions, who are perfect love's extension entirely, or I will keep an image of myself that is not whole and will remain afraid to look within and find escape from every false belief there. Awakening rests on the faith that there cannot be some forms of guilt that I cannot let go of, and so there cannot be any appearances that have replaced the truth about perfect love's extension. Let's just say these corrections of letting go can heal all forms of sickness, or it cannot heal at all. So so if there's one appearance and remains unhealed, then one illusion must be part of the truth. And so we've got to let go of it all entirely. Otherwise, we keep an image of ourselves that is not whole and will remain afraid to look within and find escape from false belief there. So this awakening rests on the faith that there cannot be some forms of guilt that we can't let go of. So it's entirely. It's just letting go of the whole false illusion.
I must let go of my judgment of my companions with perfect love's extension entirely. Otherwise, I'll keep an image of myself that is not whole and will remain afraid to look within and find escape from every false belief there. So I keep the false self-concept going by my judgment of my companions. And that's why everyone's addicted to judgment. And then you understand why we've created the world the way we've created it. It makes sense, doesn't it? Why does everyone judge? Why is everyone so busy judging everyone else and attacking and condemning? Because it keeps their self-concept intact. That's why. And the ego tells them that self-concept is life. This is your existence. This is your life. Without this, you'll be nothing. So to let go then is death. So stay away from that, because that's not what you want. You want to hold on to your grievance and you want to keep this self-concept intact. Even though it's such a painful existence, that self-concept gets hurt, gets upset, gets hurt frequently, gets sick, ultimately dies. And yet the ego says, well, it's all worth it because at least you exist in some kind of separate form. That awakening says, no, none of that's true. Your false self-concept is not true. And so there cannot be any appearances replace the truth. None of these appearances mean anything. Nothing I see means anything. I've just given it all the meaning that it has for me. I made it up. It's designed only to perpetuate my illusion of being an individual self, being a victim of a cruel external world, prey to limitation, lack, loneliness, suffering, and inevitably death. And when you see it in such clear terms, is there really a choice as to whether to let it go or forgive or not? There's no choice. You must, if you understand how it all works, which is why he spends a lot of time in the text and the workbook, but particularly the text, explaining to us how it works so that we understand, and then the decision to forgive is automatic. We really understand it. So understanding leads to forgiveness. The more you forgive and you let go, the more you see the benefits of that, the more you understand, the more you, oh yeah, this actually does make sense and it works. And the more you awaken to the truth of who you are. So forgiveness is the practice of understanding who you are. That's quite a good way of framing it, isn't it? Forgiveness is the practice of understanding who you really are.
Mm-hmm.
And learning that forgiveness lesson by forgiveness lesson. Because if you've totally forgotten who you are, how do you remember? Do you remember step by step using this practice that he's giving us? And so it comes down to, can you forgive your brother, your companion, for their apparent sins? Because when you do that, then you let go of the idea of separation, you let go of your victim identity, and you free yourself into this awareness once again. Okay, so next one.
Mm-hmm. Oops, so you're going to just to lift it up a bit?
Yep.
Yeah. I will perceive my companions with the willingness to perceive them as they are, and I will not keep apart from them outside my willingness that they be healed. To heal is to make whole, and what is whole can have no missing parts that has been kept outside. Letting go rests on recognizing this and being glad there cannot be some forms of sickness where the correction does not have the power to heal. So it's just saying to see our companions with the willingness to perceive them as they really are and not keep them apart, and a willingness for them to be healed. To heal is to make whole, and what is whole can have no missing parts. So letting go rests on recognizing this and being glad there cannot be some forms of sickness which a correction does not have the power to heal.
Yeah. So really it's just emphasizing the point that there are no exceptions. You can't make exceptions, because one exception to the truth means that the exception is real, that the idea of separation still exists in some form and it has power. And you give it that power by making an exception. So this is an all or nothing deal. He says, this course will be believed entirely or not at all. You're either going to go with this and say the forgiveness has to be complete and whole, and I have to do it entirely, or I don't do it at all, or I maintain my belief in separation and I'm stuck in this fairly disastrous situation of thinking I'm a separate self in a cruel world and I'm doomed to suffer and die. Those are the choices. Forgive entirely, or you suffer in hell. Some of you might go, that's a bit too radical, and I like a slightly gentler version of spirituality. You know, someone once said, no, the course is too full on. But just think about that. Okay, so what do you want it to be then? Half on? Like a half on teaching that's just kind of only going to get you halfway there, 50% there, glass kind of half full, half empty, not really going the whole way to enlightenment. Well, that's what you're going to get, isn't it? Compromise solution. Glass half empty, glass half full, a very mixed bag, the duality still going on, and you're still not sure about who you are and about what reality is, because you're not willing to commit one way or another. So then you have a split mind and a split dualistic reality that reflects that mind. And that's exactly the way the world's set up. Duality, to perpetuate the split, to keep us in confusion, to keep us believing we're victim. Maybe we don't think we're a victim all the time, but the victim surfaces periodically, doesn't it? And that identity comes up, and then we still believe it. And when that happens, then just welcome it. Say, okay, life's again showing me my victim identity, and it's helping me release it. Thank you for showing me my shadow and helping me release it. Remember we said that as one of our statements in the Art of Letting Go course when we did the name your game and the flipping your flop process. Thank you for showing me my shadow and helping me release it. So you say that to everyone and everything. Thank you for showing me my shadow and helping me release it. Including whatever your companions have done to you. So it could be the worst abuse, attack, hatred, killing, murder, and all of that does happen in the dream, but nevertheless, it's just designed to awaken you from the nightmare of the ego into the truth. That's what it's designed to do, in truth. That's why everything, Yeshua says, everything is gently planned for your good. Well, because by correctly interpreting it, the worst trauma is your forgiveness lesson that helps you to awaken from it and go home and free your mind from all the trauma. So it's gently planned for your good if you perceive it correctly with the Holy Spirit. All right. Happy with number 8. Let's go to number 9 then. So I'll read original, you read the alternative. So God's Son is perfect, or he cannot be God's Son.
Perfect love's extension is perfect, or it cannot be the extension of perfect love.
Nor will you know him if you think he does not merit the escape from guilt in all its consequences and its forms.
Nor will I know my companions if I think they do not deserve the escape from guilt in all its consequences and forms.
There's no way to think of him but this, if you would know the truth about yourself.
There is only one way to think of them if I want to know the truth about myself.
I thank you, Father, for your perfect Son, and in his glory will I see my own.
So I thank you, Source, for the perfect extension, and so I perceive my own magnificence in all my companions.
Yeah. So here is the joyful statement that there are no forms of evil that can overcome the will of God, the glad acknowledgement that guilt has not succeeded by your wish to make illusions real.
Here is the joyful statement that there are no forms of evil that can overcome the pure formless awareness of perfect love, and the glad acknowledgement that guilt has not succeeded through my wish to make illusions real.
And what is this except a simple statement of the truth?
And what is this except a simple statement of the truth?
And then from the top in the alternative.
Perfect love's extension is perfect, or it cannot be the extension of perfect love. Nor will I know my companions if I think they do not deserve the escape from guilt in all its consequences and forms. There is only one way to think of them if I want to know the truth about myself. I thank you, my source, for your perfect extension until I perceive my own magnificence in all my companions. Here is the joyful statement that there are no forms of evil that can overcome the pure, formless awareness of perfect love, and the glad acknowledgement that guilt has not succeeded through my wish to make illusions real. And what is this except a simple statement of the truth?
Yeah. So what's he saying?
Well, he's saying to thank our source for the perfect extension of our magnificence in all our companions. It's a joyful statement that there's no evil, and the acknowledgement that guilt has not succeeded through my wish to make illusions real. And what is this except a simple statement of the truth?
So I'm perceiving in everyone this magnificence, this glory. That's the key. Whatever they've done, they might have done very unpleasant, very hurtful things, but yet I must see the truth in them, that they are still in their truth, in their true identity, the perfect extension of perfect love. And I perceive that magnificence in them so that I acknowledge it in myself. When I acknowledge it in them, I also acknowledge it in myself. If I deny it in them, I deny it in myself. That's how it works. It's such a simple idea. Of course, the ego doesn't want us to see that. It's way too simple for it. It's got to make it very complex. It says, no, you can treat someone else unkindly and badly and project your guilt onto them. And then actually that works because you get rid of your guilt, and then they're the guilty ones and they're the ones who are going to be punished by God. So you're off the hook. But that's just a lie. You're not off the hook because all you do is you increase your own guilt, and guilt demands what? Punishment. So you build up the guilt and eventually punishment will come. And we see, in human history, look at all the oppressive regimes that try and justify their oppression. Sooner or later, they all fall, don't they? And they get their comeuppance because that's what happens. If you perpetuate guilt through your actions, then at some point you punish. Look at all the tyrants of history. What happened to Hitler? Ends up alone in a bunker where he was with his wife. And the whole world's hunting him, right? He's being hunted down. They're coming to get him. He's got no option but to commit suicide. That's where his guilt led him to death. Another one, Mussolini, another dictator who tried to, with the grandiose, puff himself up into some bigger, larger than life character, but at the expense of others, and all this hurt and pain and suffering that his thugs cause. And then in the end, he's strung up. His own people, just get him and they hang him. It never ends well. Saddam Hussein, similar demise. It never ends well when you believe in guilt and you follow the course of evil. So rather in all of your brothers, even if they're doing that stuff, just see, forgive them, Father, for they don't know what they do. They're completely confused about who they are. That was the message of the crucifixion. They don't know what they're doing, but they are still perfect love. You can still see that even while they're crucifying you. That was the powerful message of the crucifixion, stated in those words. You can still see their true reality as extensions of source, of God, perfect love, even though they're behaving in this way that contradicts it. And I thank you for them, even though they may not be behaving according to their true divine nature, because I can still perceive it in them if I choose to. And that's the power of forgiveness. You still have the power to do that, no matter what anyone does to you. It's high level forgiveness, albeit, but it's possible, and it was demonstrated by Yeshua, and it's been demonstrated by other people. We mentioned Nelson Mandela and Viktor Frankl, and there's been many people who've suffered greatly, and yet they've managed to still forgive. You need to go at 8:30. Okay, no problem then. So, last paragraph. So look on your brother with this hope, and you will understand he could not make an error that could change the truth in him.
I perceive my companions with the hope in me. I will understand they could not make an error that could change the truth in them.
It is not difficult to overlook mistakes that have been given no effects.
It is not difficult to overlook mistakes that have been given no effects.
But what you see as having power to make an idol of the Son of God, you will not pardon.
But I will not let go of what I perceive as having the power to make a false self of perfect love's extension.
For he has become to you a graven image and a sign of death.
And for then will my companions become a graven image and a sign of death to me.
Is this your Savior?
Is this my awakener?
Is his father wrong about his son?
Is its source wrong about its extension?
Or have you been deceived in him who has been given you to hear for your salvation and deliverance?
Or have I been deceived in them who have been given to me to facilitate my healing, awakening, and freedom? Yeah, I perceive my companion
Let's read it from the top.
with this hope in me, and I will understand they could not make an error that could change the truth in them. It is not difficult to overlook mistakes that have been given no effects, but I will not let go of what I perceive as having the power to make false self perfect love's extension. For then will my companions become graven image and a sign of death to me. Is this my awakener? Is it its source wrong about its extension, or have I been deceived in them who have been given to me to facilitate my healing, awakening, and freedom?
Okay, what's he saying there?
Well, it's just difficult to overlook mistakes that have been given no effects, but I will not let go of what I perceive as having the power to make a false self a perfect love's extension. So it's saying that, or then my companions will become a graven image and a sign of death. So it's questioning all this of the way we are in the separate self.
If I hold a grievance against one of my companions, I make them into a graven image, a false self-concept, a sign of death and destruction and pain and punishment. And then he's saying, is this really your awakener? Can this really be the case? Is its source wrong about its extension? Or have I just been deceived? who have been given me to facilitate my healing, awakening, and freedom. No matter what they've done, this is the truth. They're there to help you awaken, to help you find freedom, especially when they've hurt you. That's how it works. Because there you can see the ego very clearly. You can let it go, and you can realize the truth that lies beyond it. Okay, so a few minutes, just read this to finish off. A couple of paragraphs, 3 paragraphs.
Yeah. Are we reading one each?
Can do that if you want.
Yeah. Shall I start off? I understand that anger.
I think I'll start. You
Oh,
read
okay.
you read the key message.
Oh,
So
okay.
understand that anger is never justified, and any form of attack lacks any true foundation. True liberation begins when I'm willing to let go of fear and false perceptions. We'll make that my fear and false perceptions. True pardon is always justified. Awakening is about responding appropriately to what is unreal by recognizing its non-existence. Letting go is the only rational response in the face of errors or misperceptions. By understanding the truth behind letting go, I can replace my terrifying illusions with reality, with a capital R. It is essential to know that genuine pardon or letting go will lead to healing. So for me to know, essential for me to know that only genuine pardon or healing or letting go will lead to healing. If I think I cannot let go of some aspects of my existence in this world, I will cling to illusions and prevent my liberation. So he's really saying it's kind of all or nothing. You got to let go entirely or not at all, and letting go is the path to freedom.
Yeah.
Okay, next one.
For real healing to occur, I must believe that all forms of suffering can be healed. Holding on to selective beliefs about what can or can't be healed means I'm not ready to let go entirely. Any belief suggesting some errors or illusions are more permanent than other limits my capacity for true letting go. Healing is comprehensive, and nothing should remain unhealed. Perceiving others with genuine willingness to perceive them as they are, without making exceptions, is my path to complete healing. So it's just all or nothing for the healing to occur.
Yeah, no exceptions. I think that's really the key thing to understand. Sports. You cannot make exceptions, because you make one exception and you deny the whole truth. So you then back in the ego and you deny love, and you back in sin, guilt, fear, attack, and all of that's real. One exception makes it all real. If you deny it, then it's not real. It's as simple as that. It's reality or unreality, and you've got to choose. So the essence of life is perfect. Recognizing this perfection in others allows me to perceive the truth about myself. I'm grateful for this understanding and acknowledge that no form of negativity can overcome the pure formless awareness of perfect love. When I perceive others with hope, I understand that they cannot alter the inherent truth within them. Let's make that change. And I cannot change the inherent truth within them. No mistakes have the power to affect the truth, so they must all be easy to let go of. Holding on to a perception that someone else's mistakes have the power to change the truth about them or myself is a false belief. Awakening and true freedom come from recognizing and celebrating the unchangeable truth within myself and everyone. So he's just saying it's an all or nothing deal. We must see that we can always choose to let go, and we must choose that without exception, irrespective of what our companions have done or not done to us or anyone. Because only then do we deny all of the errors, and only then do we accept the truth fully back into our minds. Okay, and then just the key message.
Yeah. True pardon or letting go leads to healing and liberation. Awakening involves letting go of my illusions and recognizing the inherent perfection in everyone. Perceiving others with loving kindness and an understanding helps me to perceive the unchangeable truth within everyone. paving the way for my healing, awakening and freedom from all suffering. So yeah, that sums it up.
Yeah. So overall, it's an all or nothing deal. I must forgive no matter what seems to happen. I mustn't make exceptions. Um, and that's the way out. That's healing, awakening, and freedom. I might just actually add, I was letting go of all my illusions without exception. Yeah. So that's a key point. You can't make exceptions and still be practicing this course. Obviously, the ego is tempting you to make exceptions, to be tempted, but in the end, you have to recognize that, I have to let this go as well. And those exceptions are exactly your forgiveness lessons that then help you to awaken to the truth beyond them. You see how it works. Without the exceptions popping up and the forgiveness lessons, you wouldn't let them go and heal your mind completely. It all makes, really good sense from the perspective of the Holy Spirit. And you understand its thought system. And the ego makes no sense at all from that perspective. And the more you practice and you learn, the more you realize the simplicity of what he's actually saying. And that gives you the clarity in your own mind to just do what he's saying, just forgive, just let go, because there's no other way. And that's the benefit of studying the text, is it helps you to do that. So you understand why you're letting go. It's the why he's teaching us here, isn't it? Understand why I must let go. But if the why is big enough and you really understand it, then you'll do it. But if it's kind of a wishy-washy, well, why I should forgive because that's what my church says I should do, or that's what a good Christian should do, or I've been told I should forgive, it's not really a big enough why, is it? Not compelling enough to make you do it. The ego's why of, no, this has really hurt, and you can't let go of this grievance because what they've done is just unforgivable. That becomes bigger than the truth. Okay, so that's the end of the section. You said you needed to go. So any other questions or comments on this, Elaine? Otherwise,
No, that's,
yeah.
no, good lesson. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. And I'll send out, I've got recordings, I think, of last year when we did the lesson,
Right.
presentation stuff. So I'll send those out now.
Okie doke.
At your leisure. Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. You gonna join tomorrow?
Yeah. See you tomorrow.
Yeah. Shall we do afternoon? You okay with that?
I think so. It might be certainly after 1:30, but because I know I've got to go to the vets. But yeah, afternoon should be fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we start at say 2 o'clock.
Yep, that'll be good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Great.
See you then.
Okay. Namaste.
I'll say
Good night. Bye.
nice evening. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so that is a wrap for today. Thank you to Elaine for joining, making it a dialogue, a conversation rather than a monologue. If you enjoyed this session, a couple of things you can do. Sign up to subscribe to the channel. You'll be notified whenever I go live, which is 3 or 4 times a week. You'll be notified by YouTube. You can watch the live stream or the recording on YouTube. Secondly, if you want to take a deeper dive into this course, this program, Course in Miracles, the Ask, Let, and Go program, go to lifecool.com. You can sign up there to receive a daily message on Telegram, which is a messaging platform alternative to WhatsApp, better platform, which is why I use it. And you can get a daily inspirational quote, some teaching around that, a blog post related to that, a message related to the daily quote, the lesson for the day, which is related to the quote from Course in Miracles workbook, in both original and alternative formats. There's also the text reading for the day in original and an alternative language that should help you to understand the course better. Also send out some meditations and shorter breath breaks to help you to practice the course and yeah, keep you in the right mindset in the face of all the temptations of this world to judge and condemn and attack your brothers, to keep you in this state of forgiveness. Help you to practice it and ultimately free your mind through doing it. So go to lifeball.com to do that. And you can also join the live calls from those text messages. I send you a link to Zoom, and I tell you when the live sessions are happening, so you can join us in one of these calls. And that just takes your experience to another level, as hopefully you will have appreciated by watching this video to the end. So I hope to connect with you on the inside in one of these calls soon, and wishing you much good practicing and much love, peace, and joy. In the meantime, namaste, which means the truth in me acknowledges and honors that same true truth and true self in you. Peace. Hopefully see you soon. Bye.